I would start to sweat. I would feel my whole body clench up, right? I mean, I was experiencing some pretty intense anxiety when I
Yeah.
had spent 0 minutes with her, right? Just the idea of
Yeah.
seeing her.
Hello and welcome to How to Be a Terrible Daughter, the podcast where Megan and I hate your parents for you. I'm sure they deserve it.
I'm sure they do. And welcome to season 2. This
Woohoo!
is our first episode of our second season. Welcome back. We are so excited to be recording again and be doing this again. And we also just wanted to say thank you to everyone who sent an email or sent us a message on social media saying that they found our podcast and that they resonated with our podcast, and especially that it was helpful, because this really is, I know it's so cheesy, but this is a labor of love. And
Yes.
Elizabeth and I really are just trying to turn like our shitstorm of pain that we had to endure into something helpful, like, right? Like that's kind of all you can do with it, right? So
Yeah.
it just means a lot. Please keep sending those messages. We really appreciate them. So thank you to everyone.
And we want to hear your stories. Like sometimes all you can do is listen, right? When you're in
Yeah.
that stage. But also, we would love to hear how you're doing, what's going on with you, and everything.
Yes, absolutely. Please, yeah, send us messages, send us updates, send us questions, yeah, we'd love to just hear how you're doing. Part of what we're trying to do here is create a community, like a genuine, actual, real life community, not like a performative, like, you're on my podcast tribe, like an actual, we talk to each other and support each other community. And we've
Yeah.
got plans in the works for how we're going to like do that and make this bigger. But for now, just reach out and connect with us. That's what we can do.
Yeah. We're all out there alone together. I remember what that was like, when
Hmm.
I was full in my 24/7 gaslight mode, right? Like I am the terrible person and I'm all alone. Well, this is the other thing, which is like if I actually tell people what's going on, they're also going to agree that I am the terrible person.
Right.
They are going to want to leave me alone. So it's like,
Yeah,
okay, yeah,
it's like layers and layers and layers of isolating you. The type of abuse that a narcissist does. It's not only isolating you, from your friends and family by like splitting and things like that, but it's also isolating you by gaslighting you so that you start believing you're the bad person and then you don't reach out for help
hmm,
or connection, right? So,
yep.
yeah, for sure. So, yeah, let's do some quick introductions just in case, people don't know who we are or they're like jumping in on season 2. I'm Megan Caper. I'm a medical intuitive and healer as well as an occupational therapist.
I'm Elizabeth Malamed. I am a psychotherapist and a multimedia artist.
And we're
And we're cousins.
cousins. We're cousins. So we
Thank
grew
goodness.
up, I know, we grew up watching each other's crazy mothers do narcissistic, crazy shit. And so we have a really interesting take on this because we saw it happen to each other. So,
Hmm.
and we supported each other. Once we figured it out, which took a while, that's the other
Yep.
part of this type of abuse. And you were saying when you were in the full gaslighting stages, this takes a long time to like figure out what happened and unravel and, all that stuff. So eventually we figured it out and we've been inseparable ever since.
Woohoo! Woohoo!
So we wanted to start out season 2 by doing a holiday survival guide. We have Thanksgiving coming up here in the US. And then there are all of the like winter holidays like Christmas and Hanukkah and other holidays that are coming up for people. And so we wanted to do a holiday survival guide because this time of year can be really tricky to navigate,
Oof.
both logistically and emotionally, for people that come from this kind of family or are trying to figure out how much contact you want to have with your family or in what ways. Holidays can be like super high guilt times of year if you do try to enact boundaries that other people don't agree with. So we
Bitter
just wanted,
laugh.
yeah. So we just wanted to, put together some ideas, some tips, some of our thoughts on how to navigate holidays with your narcissistic family members. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, my inner child is like screaming at the top of their lungs, don't fucking go. Don't, just don't find a way, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
get into a car accident. And I'm not saying,
Oh
but it's just like,
no.
whatever you can do,
Yeah.
just don't.
Yeah.
Like,
Right. This is a good time of year to all of a sudden take up skateboarding without using a helmet or elbow pads.
right. My inner child does curse like a sailor. In fact, they should curse more.
They probably should. I curse more on this podcast than I do in daily life, and I feel like it's probably because there is that inner child who never got to be angry. And so now when I'm talking about this stuff as an adult, I'm like, bleep, bleep,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely. What is it? We learned how to use it meaningfully, right? This is the time and place for it.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Okay, so we just wanted to do, if you're here and you've been listening to our podcast, then you know the type of family we're talking about. But, one of the things we wanted to mention is that there is a difference between unpleasant versus abusive family dynamics. And sometimes it can be hard to tell the difference, especially if you've been gaslit for decades. But you had a really good, I loved your little litmus test
Oh, okay. I don't remember
for
what it is.
for how to do it. Well, it's so you said think about how much
Oh,
time I could spend with this person or my family
right.
um,
Without starting to lose it
without
inside.
starting to lose it. Yeah, without starting to lose it inside, without feeling panic or anxiety or dread or any emotion beyond just like sort of annoyance. You know what I mean? Like deeply disturbing, unsettling things. And, would it be 3 days? Would it be 3 hours? Would it be 3 minutes?
Right.
And that really is a good indicator of whether these are just unpleasant dynamics versus abusive dynamics. Like I know for
Yeah.
me, I was no contact with my mom for many, many years, but I would have to see her occasionally at family events. And before I even saw her, when I was like driving to the event, I would start to feel my heart racing. I would start to sweat. I would feel my whole body clench up, right? I mean, I was experiencing some pretty intense anxiety when I
Yeah.
had spent 0 minutes with her, right? Just the idea of
Yeah.
seeing her.
3 seconds of thinking about it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. In fact, even right now, she's dead. And even right now, I feel like just thinking about having to see her. But yeah,
Totally.
so, that is a really, really good indicator of the type of family dynamics we're talking about, the abusive dynamics, is like how much anxiety and dread are you feeling? I also have people that I don't love to hang out with just because they're like, I don't know, have differing political opinions than me, or I don't have anything really to talk to them about, right? So it's sort of awkward and there's like awkward silences. And when I think about those type of family interactions, I'm more just like, ugh, I don't really want to go, right? But there's no level of panic or anxiety or dread, right? It's more of just a like, oh, this is going to be annoying.
The one thing to keep in mind is that if you are in continual contact with this toxic family, you may be so perennially shut down or perennially anxious that it's actually hard to truly gauge. And so I really recommend finding whatever ways you can do to relax and find ways to calm your system so that you can, at the very least, right, just be able to get an accurate check-in.
Yeah.
But the truth is that if your family was a good family, you'd actually want to be seeing them. And this is something that I am still figuring out, which is like there are actually people in the world who like feel relief and comfort when they think about seeing their family. Like I don't like I'm still
What?
like okay, like it's like learning to speak Chinese. I'm like,
Uh,
really? Like that's really oh okay. And that's also tough because we are just taught to accept so much and we really don't have to.
no, no, you don't have to. Okay, so let's sort of move on to some of the more practical sort of tools and ideas that we had around how to survive your narcissistic, batshit crazy family over the
Yeah,
holidays.
yeah. We've sort of got three sections, right? We've got what to do beforehand, what to do during, and then what to do after, like aftercare.
Yeah,
So, and you got it. I mean, well, I'm not going to tell you what you have to do, right? But I had to do all three. I had to have something in place for each thing.
yeah, agreed. I also had to do all three. So again, and that is also a sign. If you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I already do those things, that's probably a sign that your family does not have the healthiest dynamic and that maybe, you should think about stepping back a little bit. But that's
Yeah.
maybe for part two of this episode. Okay, so first we're going to talk about, like you said, boundaries before you even go, like what you can put in place before you even go.
Yeah.
So you had some good ideas about what kinds of things you could say.
Yeah. So one of the things is to let your family know in advance. So what you need to do is you need to set things so that you're not just constantly without end, facing these people. So you may say that you only have this much time that you can spend, right? Like I can only make it, the family vacation is, 10 days and I can only make it for 4 or
Hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
You can blame work or whatever. Like I have a work project I have to work on or I have meetings that I need to attend. That's
Hmm.
good because it'll break up the time in between, right?
Yeah.
And then you'll kind of get some downtime.
Just to be clear, you don't actually have to set up work meetings.
Yeah, no.
Your like finger quotes work meeting is you going into the room that, the bedroom you're staying in or your hotel room and getting on your tablet and like watching YouTube or something, right? Like
Yes.
that's your
Yeah.
like quote unquote work meeting. So just to be clear, we are advising you to lie
Yes.
about this.
That used to drive me crazy because that was something that my mom, would be like, you're a liar and whatever. And the truth is that if you have a person that punishes people every time they tell the truth to you, then they're asking to be lied to. No one is actually owed your truth,
Yeah.
right? It's a courtesy to be honest, it's intimacy to be honest, but no one owes the truth to another person, especially someone who's abusive.
Well, and I was going to say, I think there's a big difference between lying in order to be manipulative, right? In order to get other people to do what you want or, to deceive people in some way so that they
Absolutely.
act a certain way. And there's a difference between that and lying for your own protection, for your own
Yeah.
safety and your own sanity. I don't think anyone, I mean, if we take the situation of like, the creepy dude in the bar who's like, hey, baby, blah, 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 right? And a woman responds, like, oh, I have a boyfriend when she doesn't. Like, that's the same sort of thing we're talking about here. This is self-preservation and self-protection, and nobody's going to be like, that's ethically wrong that she said that, right? Like,
Yeah.
so, you know,
Only the abusers would say that, right?
right? Well,
Yeah.
only the guy, right? The guy would walk off and be like, she lied to me. She gave me a fake phone number. Like, well, yeah, because you were being a creeper, right? So,
Yeah.
we're talking about dynamics here where this is this is acceptable. The ethical
Yeah.
gray areas.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, which I love this idea, and I had always done the sort of like the work call or I have a tummy ache, I gotta go lie down for a while or whatever it is. But you had also said find some things you actually want to do on that trip, especially if you're traveling to somewhere other than you live. Like maybe there's a museum you want to go to, or there's like, a show or a performance that you want to go to. And tell your family ahead of time, like, hey, there's this thing I'm really interested in and I want to go do it. And so then they know that you're going to be gone during that time. So that's another way you can sort of break up the time. Or sometimes what I would do is I'd say, oh, I want to see my old friend so and so who I haven't seen in forever, right? So I'm going to be
Mhm.
gone all of Thursday afternoon and evening as we hang out together, right? So that's another thing you can do is make plans to go see friends. So basically, what it is just before you even go, make sure you have plans to break up the time so that you have some time away from your family to rebalance and get a little bit of your sanity back.
And I know that I needed to plan in advance because, like, when I was with my family, I would shut down so completely that even the things that I had said that I wanted to do, I ended up, quote unquote, not feeling like doing because I was so shut down. I couldn't even, and that was like if I hadn't actually like planned to do it like a specific day or a specific time, like I wouldn't even be able to keep that commitment to myself.
Yeah.
So, let alone be able to want to do anything in the moment. So, the planning part is really important.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, that's probably one of the reasons why I specifically made plans with friends because I made plans with friends that knew how bad my family was. And
Yeah.
so even if I started to be like, oh, I don't know that I have the energy for this because I would be so drained by spending time with
Hmm.
my mom, they would be like, nope, you're getting out of there, right? Like, so enlisting
Yeah.
those people that know, that understand and that know, and then letting them know beforehand, I'm going to be in town, this is happening you know, I think that can be really helpful. The other thing is, especially if you have one of those families that plans every single minute of every single day, let them know really far in advance that you have this work call or you want to go to this museum or you are making plans with this friend because it'll be harder for them to disagree with you or guilt you if you told them way before they planned anything, right? So if you tell them the week before and they're like, but I already made all these plans, right? But if you
Right.
tell them 3 months before, then they look kind of like an asshole when they try to be like, but I already made these plans. And you're like, yeah, but I told you before you even made those plans that I had these things going on, right?
Hmm.
So try to plan this ahead of time
Yeah.
as best you can. And it doesn't have to be specific. The thing you plan ahead of time could be like, I am going to have a lot of work calls during this period, right?
Yes.
So, yeah. So that's number one is just plan ahead. Plan ahead so that you have these little escape hatches that you can crawl out of and get some air.
Yeah. I want to say that the temptation, right, is to set boundaries and limits to try and make the narcissist behavior better, right? Or like, or I can't set these boundaries because they'll blow up. And that is absolutely terrifying. But also, again, like when you have these things in place, the way they behave becomes more clearly unreasonable.
Yeah.
And not that you can't bet on everybody seeing how fucking crazy they are, but the more inappropriate they are, the more you'll get some more support, or at least you won't gaslight yourself so much because you'll be saying to a random stranger or whatever, I said that I wanted to go water skiing, 6 months in advance for one afternoon, and my mother like disowned me from the family for 24 hours. So
Right.
anyway, so
Yeah. Okay, so we have some other things to think about that are sort of personal about. So those were like things you can tell your family, right?
yeah,
These are like personal boundaries like that I would do for me, that I would make sure I have in place for me that I don't necessarily need to communicate with my family, but
yeah,
that it's more like promises I'm making to myself in order to keep myself feeling more safe. So like the first one is not getting in a car with that person. So whether that means if there's always multiple cars because it's a big family, always maneuvering so that you're in a different car. from the narcissist,
Yeah.
or renting your own car, or taking an Uber, whatever it is you have to do.
Yeah. And if you have to make up a lie to explain it, feel free to do so,
Yeah, go
right?
ahead. Yeah,
Yeah. And one of the things about this that's really important, we can't really go into the nitty-gritty for each person of like, well, this is a lie that I can't say, or this is, you know, beforehand to really kind of figure out because you're the one who knows your family. It's like, okay, how can I tailor these suggestions in a way that will harm me the least? Because that's really the goal, right? I mean,
yeah, yeah,
if only the goal were I want to have a satisfying life and, but the goal in this kind of situation is I want to be as unharmed as
yeah.
I can possibly be.
Emotionally and psychologically unharmed. Yeah,
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I could absolutely never do that, that's totally fine. Don't,
yeah. These are just,
you know best.
we have a whole list of ones we put down.
Yes,
So, like, pick
absolutely.
and choose which ones are going to work best for you.
Yeah.
So, another one is staying at another location. So, you stay at a hotel instead of at their house, or stay with another family member that lives in the same city, or a friend that lives in the same city. Just don't sleep. Don't sleep in the same house as the narcissist, or the same hotel as the narcissist if you can, or the same hotel room. Oh my God, I'm just having flashbacks to
Oh,
Hawaii.
I
Jesus
was just saying thank you,
Christ.
Megan, for these reminders. Oh,
Oh
yeah. Oh, my
my
gosh.
God. Anyway, all right. Well, moving on. I don't want to get into that right now because I do want to be able to finish recording this podcast episode.
Absolutely. Safe and
Um,
happy place.
Also, make sure that you have a therapy session to check in. Scheduling a therapy session, obviously, for when you get back is very important, but if you can, schedule a therapy session for while you're with your family. And again, this can be another one of those like quote unquote work calls that you have to go to,
Mhm.
right? So you need privacy to talk to someone from work. Very important meeting, right? But really, you're going to see, you're having a telehealth session with your therapist.
Mhm.
You can time that specifically so that if there's a particular event that you're dreading and is going to be really bad, time it so that, oh, I have this, work call, quote unquote, work call therapy session at this time, so you can leave something early. You can also make up a friend in crisis. Oh, I have this friend who's husband just left her, or, I have a friend that just got diagnosed with this horrible illness and I have to go call her. She's texting me, right? Like, so
Mhm.
sorry, I'll be back soon, right? Or I'm leaving entirely. That would be another good one for like
Yeah.
absolute, like pulling the ripcord, right? Is just like, oh my God, I have to go home immediately. I just found out that my friend has, a horrible, deadly disease that I must go help her with. So that would be another one that you could use. And then we talked another thing about like sort of the work calls, but just make sure. And again, this is one of those things where you're going to know your family the best, but make sure that you tell the story of what you need to do, the work call or the friend or whatever, in a way that they can't really poke holes in your story. Right. And again, you know their patterns, you know the kind of things they're going to ask or the kind of ways they're going to try to guilt you, and just try to have answers in advance that make sense to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even down to I don't know, like your friend actually leaving you a message or something that wasn't what I had to do, but that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, you can arrange to have a friend text you, say,
Yeah,
text me at least once a day so that my phone dings. And if you need to on one of those days, be like, oh my God, this terrible thing just happened.
yeah,
I have to
yeah,
leave now. So those were sort of like things you can do to protect your own space. And then the next set of things we have is sort of things you can do. Well, actually, no, wait, we have one more that sort of protect your own space. And then we have things you can do when you're interacting with them that can make it
right.
helpful. Do you want to go over the inner
Yeah.
child goodness?
So there's protection and then there's nurturing, right? So you're in a difficult situation. It's hard to remember to nurture yourself, but these are the things that could be really helpful. So wearing like comfortable clothing. So that may be like oversized stuff that makes you feel safe, things that are like soft or that kind of a thing, or like colors that you like to wear, things that make you feel really good. If there's like a perfume or a scent, right? You may want to bring like a stuffed animal or like a soft blanket or something like that. And to think about it in a sensory kind of way, right? So it's like, what can I hear, see, touch, smell, taste, right? And you don't have to like, hit all the bases, but to really think about it. Because part of this thing is like, you're an object, not a person. You are a full human being, and you deserve all of these. Little comforts and little pleasures because you're in well, first of all, we all deserve them all the time, but in this kind of situation, right? Like having your blanket or whatever can be, your make or break. So
Yeah.
having a favorite book, right? Or, having like, comforting movies or TVs on your tablet, downloaded or that kind of a thing. And even something like wherever you're staying, kind of like you can create a little nest for yourself or something like that.
Yeah.
Just do it. It is absolutely worth the time.
I love that idea of making sure you're treating yourself like a human and
Yeah.
not an object, right? Making sure you're acknowledging that you have needs
Yeah.
and that you deserve to be nurtured and like really going overboard in a way. I mean, not overboard, but really like upping the volume on those kind of things. The other thing I was thinking that you didn't mention that I used to do is bring a candle, a scented candle, and then I would just go back to my room where I was staying in and I would light it. That's another good one. So yeah, just anything that makes you feel comfy and warm and yummy.
Yeah. I used to cast a magic circle at the beginning of my trip in my room. I would cast
Mm,
a sacred circle in my hotel room or whatever. I could leave and whatever, and then I would kind of pack it back up at the end of the trip. And it was really funny because, my family didn't visit me in my room. Like
right.
they didn't even come knocking. They'd be like, "Oh, we'll meet you downstairs" or something like that. There's something subtle, and maybe it was just me that was like me knowing, okay, this is a space that is actually completely safe. I can let my guard down. No one is fucking allowed
Yeah.
unless I say it's okay,
I
so.
used to, if it was a hotel room, I would lock the deadbolt and I would do that little like flippy thing. I don't know what that lock's called,
Hmm.
where you can like, and I would put a chair underneath the doorknob.
God. Yeah.
I mean, all completely unnecessary. I realized no one was going to like bust into my room, but psychologically, it made me feel better.
Yes.
Like, no one's getting in here, right?
Right.
So, yeah, make that your sacred space.
Yeah.
Okay, so the other things you can do sort of while you're with people to make it easier and to sort of avoid some of the spicier conversations or situations that may cause unhinged narcissistic rage is you can prepare topics of conversation beforehand. So, for example, if you know your family likes baseball, right? Like read up a little bit on baseball beforehand and bring some topics of conversation you could talk about baseball. With my family, it is politics and science. So I would just make sure that I don't really want to talk about politics because for me that can get, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. But, I would read some interesting science articles and I would just, in the middle of conversation be like, hey, by the way, did you read that article about blah, 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 blah? And it's a good way to either start conversation or steer conversation
Hmm.
away from something that feels like it might be getting a little heated.
And you don't have to completely pay attention to what they're saying. It's the kind of thing where it's like they're off and running, right? So they can
Hmm.
talk, and you don't actually have to be completely engaged. And that's one of those things like toddlers or little kids, because emotionally that's what they are, right?
Yeah.
So, like, a toddler will, like, they'll be telling you this really, really long story. And as long as you're sitting there going, mm-hmm, oh, wow, whatever, like they don't notice that you're not 100% there. This is about relief, not about actually communicating or actually having a real interaction.
Yeah. The other thing is to plan parallel play activities. So, parallel play is a term, it's actually, again, speaking of toddlers, it is a term for a type of engagement that very young children do before children interact with each other to play games, like imaginary play or board games, they do what's called parallel play. So if you put a couple babies, toddlers in front of like a bunch of blocks, they may both start building block towers next to each other.
Hmm.
But they're not necessarily interacting with each other. They're just engaging in the same activity next to each other. And so you can plan things that are like that to do with your family so that you don't actually have to interact with them, but you can say, oh, we're doing this activity together. So, for example, going to a movie, right? Nobody has to talk to each other doing a movie or, a performance of some type of play or music, going to a museum, right? Because you can always in the museum be like, oh, I'm going to go off and explore this room, right? And get a little space for yourself. And that's socially acceptable to be in the same museum, but not be standing next to each other, somebody having a conversation the whole time.
And it gives you something to talk about as
And it
well.
gives you something to talk about. Yes. So, plan things that you actually want to do. Pick a movie that you want to go to, right? And then invite people or decide if you even want to invite them. This could be something, like we said that you do that's one of those things of like, oh, while I'm here, I really, really want to catch this particular show at this museum. And you don't have to invite anybody. You can just go. But if you want to, you can invite them. And then as usual, be flexible. If there's pushback on this, like, I can't believe that you would plan that the same day as I planned this other thing, be prepared to let it go. But this is, again, just another strategy that may help.
Yeah. And one of the nice things about this is that, if you, well, this is me, which is like the things that I really, really wanted to do that I really was excited about, no one in my family was interested in.
Yeah.
So you can kind of set up this sort of like win-win, right? Which is like, oh my
Right.
God, I get to go see this like really weird art house movie that is only showing this one night in this one city. And then, oh, look, no one somehow wants to go with me. And then the thing about that is that they can't, I mean, especially if you say, does anybody want to come? Like if it's like the midnight movie and everyone's asleep by 10 or whatever, then it's not on you that, that you excluded them. They just don't want to do it. Now, granted, that's not true for every family, but it could work out that way. And it's like you could,
Right.
when they're like, you didn't spend any time with us. It's like, well, I invited you to the midnight movie.
Right. Yeah.
And you could say, and you knew how important it was to me. So, and you keep saying that family is so important and we need to do things together.
You're
So,
getting into like advanced Jedi
sorry.
level boundary setting.
Yes, yes, yes. And actually I realized something that I also used to do, which is also a little advanced, but I remember my therapist encouraging me because to go back to the inner child stuff, to actually leave my inner child home. Basically,
Mm.
like imagine that they have like a guardian who they feel safe with. And like, I think one time I actually like sent them to an imaginary like roller coaster park or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And, this is even for like a week. And it's just like, you know what? I'm going to be an adult for a week and my inner child is going to be fine, but it's just going to be me. I was thinking about when you were talking about, the toddler stuff, which is that you're essentially babysitting these kids,
Hmm.
and to remember that. And it sucks, right? And it can get into a codependent or enabling state. But if you really think about it, like, okay, I am the babysitter and these are the kids, and they like to think that they're in charge, but they're really not. I found that really helpful for a good amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to talk about when you actually are at an event with them, like a dinner, or, if it's Thanksgiving dinner or Christmas dinner, or just you're all on a family vacation together and there's something you can't get out of. Some things you can do at the actual event itself to keep yourself safe. So the first thing is sitting as far away from the narcissist as you can at the table. Or again, if there's multiple tables, just like when there were multiple cars driving to an event, like sit at a different table.
Hmm.
Have to use the bathroom a lot. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
for some reason, you drank so much water earlier that day, and you just need a lot of bathroom breaks. Again, as you were saying earlier, Elizabeth, like sometimes you don't even realize how numbed out you've gotten, right? And so making a point to just get up and go to the bathroom and like sit in the stall and do nothing or just stand, in front of the mirror and give yourself like a nice head massage or something. Like, it can be really, really important.
Washing your
Washing your
hands.
hands, splashing some
Mhm.
cold water on your face, like these are all really, really good way, doing a few deep breaths. I saw people on social media would go and stand in front of the mirror and repeat, not my circus, not my monkeys, not my circus, not my monkeys. And I tried that once at an event and it was incredibly helpful. Saying
This
you
is the
need a nap.
shittiest circus I've ever been
Oh
to.
my God. Saying you need a nap or
Yeah.
you need to go meditate, right? You're tired. You have to leave. Oh my God, I'm so tired. Especially if you're at, someone's house and you're staying at that house, or if you're at a hotel and you're staying at that hotel, just excuse yourself early. Say you're tired. You can
Or get
also,
sick.
yeah, I was gonna say
Get
this is
sick.
also, if you really are getting up to the point where you're about to go to the dinner and you just can't, your anxiety is too high, or, you've realized that you thought you could make it through this week and you just can't, you can always get a migraine or food poisoning or your IBS is kicking up or whatever, right? Like you can't always make an excuse and not go. Not going is always an option. I mean, not going at all to your family holiday is always an option. But if you're there and you realize like this is too intense for me, I can't handle it, like just get sick. Just get
COVID
sick.
exposure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, they look bad if they pressure you or give you a hard time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, and you and I would do this for each other, like make sure you know who your allies are
Mhm.
at the actual event. Like usually there's at least one other family member who sort of gets it and sees what's going on some level. And just make sure that you guys have communicated beforehand about, a plan. Like, if I say the word geranium, like that means like, will you suddenly, go to the bathroom with me or something, right? Like,
Yes.
just have a plan. My friend and I used to do what we called the dysfunctional family exchange. This is a friend
Hmm.
I had years ago in college where on breaks, like Thanksgiving break, I would go to his family and Christmas break, he would come to my family. And partially it was just so that we didn't have to go see our own families, but it was also partially so that we had that person there who knew and who got it and who understood,
Yeah.
right? So just make sure you have your allies and your spotters.
Yeah. Going to bed early, sleeping in late, that can give you, time in the evening and time in the morning to recenter yourself or journal or do like stupid stuff,
Yeah.
that's comforting or that kind of a thing. So that can be
And
really good.
and just to be clear, we're not saying you actually have to sleep. So I would wake
Oh,
up at 7 or 8, but then not emerge from my room until 10 or 11. Be like, oh man, I guess I really needed sleep, right? But that whole time I was reading a book or, doing something else. So
yep, yep.
make sure you're not alone with the narcissist. If you can help it, be in public as much as possible because they tend to be on better behavior when you're in public or around other people. This sort of goes back to the sort of saying you have a migraine or food poisoning or whatever, but if you're physically uncomfortable, if you're having a panic attack or, your stomach hurts or you're having trouble breathing, you are allowed to leave. You are allowed to leave. I know it's really easy when that happens to have some catastrophic thought loops, right? About what
Hmm.
happens if you leave.
Hmm.
But I am giving you permission. We are giving you permission. If it's really
Yes.
uncomfortable, you're allowed to leave.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, if you decide you need to leave or you decide you don't want to go at all, or you have to leave the event early, or you have to like sequester yourself in this one corner all night so that you can avoid the narcissist, you're allowed to have separate relationships with other family members
Hmm.
and see them separately. So I know sometimes for me, the guilt of like, oh, I didn't talk to so and so or whatever,
Yeah.
but they were like sitting next to the narcissist all night, you're allowed to contact them separately and let
Hmm.
them know that either you're not going to the event and you want to see them, or that you didn't get to spend as much time with them at the event as you wanted to and you'd love to catch up. Those are all things you're allowed to do.
After I stopped talking to my mom, I guess, yeah, a couple months later, they had their 60th wedding anniversary
Mm.
celebration, and I did not go.
I
And
I
yeah,
wasn't invited because I had lured you away
oh,
from your
yes.
family.
Yes, because you're such a terrible. Well, and that's actually what was really helpful about that situation because I had told my mom about this trip far in advance. And then during the trip, she had a complete meltdown that I was gone. And I was just
Yeah.
like, you knew about this. You knew
Yeah.
about this and whatever. So, but anyway, and I texted my family members and I was like, I'm not going to be able to go to this, but I'd really love to see you because I know you're in town and, just let me know if you have any time. And in some ways that was terrifying, but I got pleasant responses or, no responses or whatever, but I
Yeah.
certainly didn't get any problem. The other thing is that the narcissist wants to look good. So they may shit talk you at the event or whatever, but they may actually also make up an excuse for you
Yeah.
because
That's
they
true.
don't want to look bad. So because I think what happened was is that I think they told people I was sick and couldn't come.
Yeah.
So when I was actually just like, no, you guys are batshit crazy. And you can think about that, right? So Elizabeth is a person who didn't even go to her 60th and, her parents' 60th anniversary
Yeah.
celebration.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm here. I survived. I survived.
Yes. Yes. You made an excuse. You didn't go.
Yeah.
People were either neutral or nice to you about it, which is
Yeah.
what most people are. There was probably some shit talking behind your back, but who cares? Right? Like, there's going
Yeah.
to be
If I
shit
don't
talking
hear it,
regardless. Even if you went to the event, there very well would probably have been shit talking behind your back about something you did or didn't do at the event, right? That wasn't
yeah,
acceptable.
absolutely.
You're going to get shit. That was a big thing for me to realize in my like journey of pulling away from my mom is realizing that I was going to get she was going to talk shit about me behind my back, regardless of how much I tried to
Yep.
be a good daughter.
Yep.
That it
Regardless.
actually didn't matter. It was almost the same amount of shit talking, whether I
Absolutely.
was trying to be a good daughter or whether I had just accepted, like, fine, screw it. I'm a terrible daughter. I'm not going to come to your event. I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. Right. So, one of the reasons we call this podcast How to Be a Terrible Daughter is a big part of the journey of this is accepting being seen as a bad person in other people's eyes and having someone smear lies about you behind your back and staying in your integrity and being like, I know who I am.
Yeah.
I know that the people who I want in my life will contact me and ask if this is true, right? And try to have some sort of communication. And I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with that. So,
Yeah. It took me a really long time to realize that I could ask from the people in my life to make their own judgments and not just believe what other people said about anybody. I mean, and part of it is like I learned how to do that. I mean, I just didn't believe a word anybody said about anybody third hand,
right.
and I didn't even have to say it, but I would just be like, okay, like I haven't seen that, I haven't seen that behavior with this person, so I'm just going to keep that in the question box. But I also deserve to be given the benefit of the doubt and if those people just believe what the narcissist says, they are not that they're not worthy of having a relationship with, but in some ways, it's either they are naive or foolish, right? Or they're able to, they can't see through. And I deserve,
Or it's just I mean, I guess this is sort of, I think for some people, it's not worth it to challenge narcissist because then they know they'll get,
yeah.
screwed over.
Well, but I'm talking about just internally, right? But it's like, you know what? I deserve to have people in my life who also understand that they need to make their own
Yeah.
judgments about people,
Yeah.
right? And not just believe the gossip,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, so after you get back, aftercare is very, very important. So
Therapy,
we
therapy.
talked about having a therapy appointment. Yes, for sure. I'll put it on the books so that you have it when you get back. And then, find again those things like sort of like we said to bring with you and put in your hotel room, like the, stuffed animal or the candle or the comfy clothes. Like give yourself as much and as many of those things as you need. So go get a massage. Plan to have an entire day off. Call in mental health day at work and just stay in bed all day in your pajamas, reading, or watching your favorite TV show and just cocoon.
Yeah. Yeah. And do stuff for
Pets,
your inner child. Hmm.
yep, do stuff for your inner child. Pets, I've always had a pet because, psychologically, I've kind of needed one because I know they're not going to judge me. I know they're not going to believe the lies. I know they're not going to like try to manipulate me, when I get back from these events. If you don't have a pet yourself, you could go visit a friend who has pets, or you could go to like a cat cafe or something and just spend some time around animals that only know how to give love and not manipulate. And then lastly, send us all your crazy stories.
Yeah. Yes.
So I'd love to hear them. It'd be great to do like another episode that's just reading off crazy shit that happened to people over the holidays.
Yeah. Although I don't know if I could handle doing that. Well, no, actually, other people's stories are perfectly fine. So, but we'd have to like put something in the middle there, I think,
Right, right.
to
We'd
lighten
have
the mood.
we'd have to have like
So,
a solid 10 minutes of like bird song or something.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just kind of going back to, you deserve to feel good and you deserve to have good things happen to you and to spend your time in a way that nurtures you. You just deserve that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And remember, this sort of goes back to that same point. Most people have families that when they go visit them for a week or two, it feels good and they feel cared for and loved, and it fills their cup, right? So that they have more emotional and psychological energy when they come back from that trip. And, you know, it's okay to not participate if that's not what your family does for you. That's what it's supposed to be, right? When people are like, oh, are you going to visit your family for the holidays? That's what they assume you're going to have is a restful,
mhm.
loving, caring place, right?
Yeah,
So if it's not that, know that it's okay not to go. It's
yeah.
okay to make an excuse. It's okay to like all of a sudden get food poisoning or, what one of the other things we've talked about, right? Like you deserve to have a loving, comfortable place to spend the holidays that you are able to relax and get some time off. And just because society expects or your family expects that you go spend time with your family over the holidays doesn't mean you have to. Because when people expect that or assume that, it's the expectation and assumption that it's a loving, happy, comforting place,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know? All right, are we ready for our season two, episode one, mini crazy mom off?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I'm not quite sure which story to tell. Do you have
Oh,
a story immediately?
I have a story. It's not a holiday story. I was trying to think of a
Um,
holiday one. I told a holiday one earlier in a previous episode, and I was trying to think of another one, but I couldn't. But I do have a story.
I
So
have a story,
first,
but it's not my mom, and it's two sentences.
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so a dear, dear friend who is also a listener, her mom's awful, and I hate her mom. I've never met her, but I don't need to, and I don't want to. So, but the thing that I keep thinking about amid all of the stories that she's told me is that her mom approves of the Japanese internment camps.
Oh
Uh,
God.
she was like, I think that was a great idea. Not only
Ugh.
and not I mean, I'm sure she approved of it, decades ago, but she still approves of it. And she also thinks that that is a strategy that should be employed in the future if needed.
Oh my God. People only thinking of themselves.
Pro Japanese internment camps.
I mean, that sort of gets into this larger thing that I've been thinking about a lot
Yeah.
about like narcissistic systems of oppression.
Yes.
And how all of these systems of oppression, whether it's imperialism, capitalism, racism, sexism, are like rooted in, othering and objecting.
They're all
So,
linked.
yeah, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's super crazy.
So yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, here's one. that came up for me a couple weeks ago that is a gem, not holiday related. So when I was in junior high, seventh grade, how old are you? 12, 13, something like that.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I was having my first ever junior high school dance. And I was at an all-girls school at the time, so this was like especially exciting because like, the local boys' schools were invited, right? Like boys. And so I was very excited, and I remember going shopping to
Hmm.
find an outfit. Very important to have the right outfit at
Yeah.
13, right? And I found this outfit, and it was a I should preface this by saying it was the 80s. This will make the outfit make more sense.
Oh my gosh. In my mind, it's going to look amazing.
It was a white sweatshirt material matching top and skirt. And the top was like the off the shoulder 80s thing, when everyone was wearing like
Yes.
the cut sweatshirts that were off the shoulder,
Yes.
right? And the skirt was like layers of sweatshirt material, sort of like, I don't even know what you call it, but like, almost looked like a petticoat, right? Like
Hmm.
layers of material, but it was a mini skirt, right?
Hmm. Oh God,
And
I
it
remember.
had it had the wide waistband that sort of you like folded over, right, to show your
Yeah.
navel,
Yeah.
right? And then I had just layers and layers and layers of like fake pearl necklaces and
Oh,
like it was very Madonna-esque, right?
oh
The
my
sort of
God.
like, right? It was a
That sounds
glorious outfit.
great.
Okay. So like white matching sweatshirt material, top
Oh,
and mini skirt. And
wow.
I think I had some like white pointy boots with some like black hardware on them to go with it.
Oh my God.
So very like a virgin.
Yeah.
I was pretty excited about the outfit. And I got ready up in my room, and the way I was getting to the dance was a friend's mom was picking me up, was driving me and my friend to the dance. I think a couple of us, she was picking up a couple of us and driving us all to the dance. And so I was up in my room getting ready, and my mom calls down to me and she's like, hey, so and so's here. They just honked. And so I come down the stairs, and my mom is standing in the entryway to the house. And she looks at me and she says, I don't know that I would have picked all white. That accentuates your body in all the wrong places.
Oh,
I was literally on my way out the door, and this is the comment she makes, right?
what a
Not
piece of shit.
like, oh, honey, you look so great, or have fun at the dance, or any other comment
God.
she could have made. It was, oh, I don't know. If I would have picked white if I were you, it accentuates your body in all the wrong places. And
Would you say that to a stranger?
no,
Would you say that to another adult?
I would not say that to anyone ever,
No.
especially not a child, not a 12, 13-year-old child.
Who is going to their first dance?
Yeah, and whose body is changing because of
Yeah.
puberty. Like, yeah,
And
no,
in Los Angeles,
particularly
where,
in LA, where,
oh
yes,
God,
body, yeah, yeah, so particularly horrid. And
I hate your mom.
I
I
know,
think I'm just coming to it. I'm just coming to it.
you've hated her for
Oh
a
my God.
while. And so I had to leave. And so I left, and there was like, there's some stairs coming down from my front door to where the street was. And
God
so I
damn it.
remember just being on those stairs, just like mentally inside my head going, keep it together, keep it together, keep it together, don't cry, like keep it together. You just have to make it down to that car and then you're out of here. You just have to make it down to the car and then you're out of here. And just doing everything in my power not to let that comment wreck me and to have a normal face on so that when I got in the car, where of course everyone was excited, yeah, we're on our way to the dance, right? That I
Yep.
could be in a space where I could get to that emotional place quickly.
Jesus.
But yeah, that's what she said to me on my way out the door to my first ever dance.
I fucking hate her.
Right. Piece of shit.
I mean, I just want to like sit. I just want to sit with your teenage self and just be like, all right, I fucking hate her. We're gonna get her. You know what I mean? She's gonna die at some point, and we're gonna start a
Yes.
podcast, and
Yep.
we're gonna tell all of her dirty secrets, and she will be fucking mortified, and everybody in the afterlife is gonna be giving her side eye for the rest of eternity.
Yeah.
or shunning
Well,
her or whatever.
hmm
God damn it.
maybe where she is right now is in the circle of hell that's a junior high school dance where everyone's pointing and laughing at you. Maybe that's where she
Oh my
is.
God. Wow. I'm just gonna breathe. I'm just gonna breathe. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
I don't have anything to say. I
I
don't have anything to
know.
say.
It was a memory that came up in doing some EMDR and therapy a couple months ago, and I was like,
Jesus.
"Oh my God, that's a bad one." No wonder my brain had sealed that one off in the vaults.
It's bad enough to think it, right? It's bad enough to think it.
Yeah,
But you could just keep your mouth shut
right.
for 5 seconds. Let this kid go out the door.
Yeah,
But no, because the whole point is to destroy,
right. The whole
right?
point was to make sure that I didn't go to the dance and have a good time and
Yeah.
potentially make some friends because that would be abandoning her, right?
Right.
So she had to
Yes.
keep me small and insecure so that I felt like there was no one else in the world for me except her. That's the whole
Mm-hmm.
point.
Yeah. There was nothing in it for her, and so she was just gonna shit on it and destroy it so that you couldn't get anything from it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a
Okay.
piece of shit. Anyway, tools.
Yes.
Oh my
Wait, this is a
goodness.
comedy podcast. I'm sorry.
What happened to the comedy part?
Yeah, totally. Please,
Um,
please.
the comedy part is that she ended up dying pretty much alone in a hospital with no one talking to her
Yeah.
because she'd alienated everyone in her life.
Including my crazy mom. So,
Including your crazy, even your crazy mom couldn't take it
I
eventually.
know, for several years, every single time we had a family holiday, we would end up at the end of the night just reveling in the fact that your mom was not there. Every single holiday for years. So,
That makes me feel so much better.
yeah,
Oh, it's
everyone
just nice
hated
to be
her.
seen, you know? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All
Tools.
right, tools. What's a tool you used this week?
Oh my goodness. Well, the good news is that I actually have a bunch. So, because I've been using this app, it gives you points when you do self-care. But the other day, I was on a morning walk, which is in itself something that's getting me through. But I saw a bunch of crows, a murder, in
A
fact. A
murder.
murder. I witnessed a murder. Anyway, and on my walk, and I was telling Mr. Elizabeth about it, and he's like, I think we've got birdseed. I think we've got birdseed in the cupboard. And so I've actually started like, taking a little bag with me. And it's not just for the crows, but it's for the whole ecosystem of my neighborhood.
Aw,
And I just love being able to, we also have, aside from squirrels, we've got some bunnies and stuff like that. So there's like a whole life out there, and I get to be part of it, and I get to give a little bit and keep it going. So it makes me feel really good.
that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I've been having a hard time this week. And, I think it's important to say that sometimes your tools don't work or you're just not even able to access them
Yeah.
for various reasons. And so I was having a hard time coming up with tools I've used this week that have worked. I will say one thing I've done is I've been cooking. I really, really like cooking. And so I've been cooking big batches of things and then freezing some of it so that like I can have some later. So I made some risotto and I made some pot roast and I roasted a chicken. And I've just been the last couple weeks, I noticed I've been cooking a lot, which makes me feel good on a lot of levels. I mean, I enjoy the activity, but then also like it's good to know that I'm eating food that I like and that's healthy. And it also
Yeah.
feels good in a way to know that I'm like taking care of future Megan by like putting these delicious things in the freezer so that when there's a night where I don't have the spoons to make anything, I can just defrost it and heat it up and eat it. So, yeah, I'll say that. I've been cooking. But yeah, it's been a hard week and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you fall apart and you're allowed to fall apart and you're allowed to not have your shit together all the
Yeah.
time, every day. Because you're a human, not an object. What a surprise. Plot
Yeah.
twist. You're not an object.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Oh my God, we should write like a horror fiction book that's about like somebody who they is actually like, you know, how like
A
I'm
person.
thinking of like waking up as the cockroach, right? But somebody who like wakes up as an object and gets treated like an object and
Oh, wow.
like a
Yeah.
sixth sense. But the plot twist is you're not an object.
Right. I actually want to write a coming of age horror movie where the teenage girl, spoiler alert, their parent is a monster, like a vampire. And it's like
Mm.
this process of like, ungaslighting yourself, which, you know, I
Wasn't there
lived
a
it.
Buffy episode with, I want to say it was like John Ritter,
Yes, he was
right?
yeah, he was like a robot
He
actually.
was a monster. Oh, I thought he had like bugs in him or something. Maybe that was another
That was a
episode.
different one. That was
Okay.
a
But
yeah.
like Buffy's mom was dating him and like she
Yeah.
could tell something was wrong, right? But mom was like,
Hmm.
this is the greatest guy ever. Yeah, very
Yep.
similar.
Yep,
Interesting.
yep, yep.
All right. Well, we love every single one of you. And I know that probably not all of you can take that in, nor do you believe me because you're like, Megan, you don't even know me. But I know that if you are listening to this podcast, that you have been through a special kind of trauma.
Yeah.
And people like that are really near and dear to my heart. I want to like swoop them up all in my wings and comfort them and love on them.
Yeah.
So I love you.
And real love is not transactional. So it's not about what you've done for us or anything like that. It's just who you are, right? We know you've been through this stuff, and that, makes you a particular kind of person. And we love you and we love that.
Yeah. We're here for you. And, always remember, especially when it comes to the holidays, that if you have to make a choice where your family is going to talk shit about you or turn you into the villain for either not going to an event or not going to an event the way they want, or, making some other choice that they think is, somehow horrifying and speaks horribly of you as a person, we say, be the villain. Just embrace it. Be the villain. Be the terrible daughter or son. Thank you for listening. We'd be so grateful if you'd follow or subscribe and rate and review our new podcast on your favorite podcast app.
Make sure to share it with friends, family, or anyone that you think may benefit from this content.
And as a final reminder, you are not the crazy one.